Perhaps because Lu Jinian and Tian Hao had grown closer recently wasn't as cold to her as before. She actually dreamed a dream she hadn't dared to after so many years, the picture of her and Lu Jinian getting married. In the dream, Lu Jinian wore a dark suit and the ceremony was awfully handsome. All their close friends were there to give their most sincere blessings. Under their master of ceremonies instructions, they gave their most devoted vows and exchanged rings. During a round of cheers, Lu Jinian slowly lowered his head and kissed her. His handsome face in front of her grew bigger, and she stared at his lips. Just as her lips were about to touch his, Tian Hao abruptly opened her eyes, waking up from her dream. The world around her was silent. She blinked twice and realized that she was home, at Miangsha Garden. She creased her brows, groggily standing up. She surveyed the room for a second. There was no one besides her. The curtains weren't shut, so the sunlight from outside was awfully bright. It lit up half the room. She remembered. Last night, she was at the hot spring resort, so how did she get back here in Miangsha Garden? Tian Hao thought hard before realizing that she had forgotten a large portion of events that had happened last night. She couldn't think of how that might have happened, so she thought that she might as well give up. Raising her head to look at the European-style clock on the wall, she realized that it was almost afternoon, and there was a scene to shoot in the early afternoon. Suddenly, Tian Hao reached for her phone by the pillow. In the end, she didn't feel anything, so she circled the room. She had the habit of carrying her bag up, but it wasn't in the room either. Confused, Tian Hao walked over to the bathroom and quickly washed her face. She went downstairs, circled the living room, looking all over. Madame Chen, who had heard movement outside, came out from the kitchen and saw Tian Hao. She immediately gave her a warm smile and said, "Miss Kiao, are you awake?" Tian Hao smiled gently at her and asked in bewilderment, "Madame Chen, have you seen my bag?" Madame Chen shook her head and said, "Miss Kiao, Mr. Lu carried you home in the morning. You didn't bring a bag." "Didn't bring a bag?" Lu Jinian carried her back. Only then did Tian Hao lower her head to look down at the clothes she wore. She found herself in a brand new feminine cotton channel dress. She became even more confused. Why did Lu Jinian carry her home? Madame Chen saw Tian Hao just standing there on her own. With her delicate brows creased, she was clearly in a daze. Madame Chen thought about Lu Jinian's orders in the morning. She immediately said, "Miss Kiao, Mr. Lu told me to cook congee. He told me to serve it when you wake up." Tian Hao still felt like something must have happened last night, but she couldn't think of what. After hearing Madame Chen's voice, she flatly replied with an "Oh." She looked a little dazed as she walked into the dining room. Madame Chen swiftly served the congee she had left to warm. She placed it in front of Tian Hao, as well as a few side dishes. Tian Hao held the spoon and casually stirred the congee. Every now and then, she would lower her head to take a sip. In the end, she couldn't hold back her curiosity any longer and looked at Madame Chen, who stood to one side, serving her. She asked, "Madame Chen, when Mr. Lu came back in the morning, did he say anything?" "He told me to cook congee, as well as not to disturb your rest." Madame Chen paused for a second, then added, "and for me to take good care of you." "Nothing else?" Madame Chen shook her head. Tian Hao's heart was even more curious. She couldn't help but bite her spoon, wishing to ask Madame Chen again, when, suddenly, the doorbell rang.